So the slightly longer version, I'm an accidental quilter. I started at 19. I never had any intention of quilting. My mom's not a quilter. I didn't really know much about it. I caught an episode of Simply Quilts one day when I wanted to see Bob Vila building a house. I loved watching HGTV for home repair shows, and that's how it all started. Mom was a seamstress, still kind of is. Borrowed her sewing machine. It was supposed to be for 2 weeks. I turned it into 4 weeks, 2 months, 4 months. 11 years later, I still have it. Luckily,
Need a new one?
At least she knows what
we now have 5 between the 2 of us. Super, super supportive mom. If anybody's ever seen me at Road or Long Beach or any of the shows, you've seen my mom. She has been nicknamed affectionately by someone Mama Bird, and she's totally cool with that. And she's super, super, but she's still not a quilter. She has no desire. She'll help me pick fabrics, she'll find quilts, but she has no desire to be a quilter, and that's totally okay with me. So this was a hobby. Hobby grew into a part-time job at a quilt shop, grew into a blog, grew into someone asked me to put something in a magazine. I thought, wait a minute, what? Good enough for that? They want that? Huh? And evolved to being here. And it's super cool for me to be here today because she kind of knows some of the backstory. But back when I had a part-time job at a quilt shop in Pennsylvania, I only moved here about 2 years ago, I got to make some store samples sometimes and do things. And one of the things I got to do was make a sample of a strip club pattern for our monthly strip club, and that's one of my earliest quilts.
Wow!
No? I thought I told that story. Yeah,
but if you did, I forgot.
Yeah. long time ago, before all these companies had these amazing, lovely pre-cuts now. And the shop I was at, we used to pick 40 bolts off the wall and cut a yard off of each, and then cut 2.5-inch strips from each one of those yards and roll up our own rolls and match them to whichever pattern. So way before anybody knew my name, I knew her name. So. That's not what I was trying to do. All right? I was trying to give her a compliment, not call her old. You guys are not helping me. For those of you who know anything about my style, I'm very mathematical about things. I offer size options on my patterns. I like math. I know that the average quilter doesn't necessarily love figuring out the math, and since I do it for you. And part of that was I couldn't always find the right rulers or tools to do what I liked. Just like they are here, I'm a big fan of the right ruler for the right project. And also finding a ruler that can be used more than once. You know, the strip tube ruler, it's not one pattern. I don't know how many there is now, but a lot.
5,000.
So that led me on a mission. And so I have developed 2 rulers, the Hex N More and the Sidekick, and they both came out of a need. It wasn't like, I want to invent a ruler, what can I do? It was, I want something that does this and it doesn't exist, so I might as well make it myself. So this is the Hex N More.
Yay!
Does anybody own it, familiar with it, love it, think it's their best friend?
Yes.
I love all of you. Anyone never heard of it before? Now's your time to make it your best friend. I came out with that a year ago. It's been very successful, and as those of you who are familiar with it know, works really well, lots of possibilities. So, just about a month ago, I came out with the Sidekick. Get it? Sidekick. The idea is it is a standalone product, and there are things you can do just with the Sidekick. But there are some things, specifically one amazing, awesome, fabulous quilt pattern that'll be out within the next 4 weeks. So excited. That is going to use both rulers. So the reason it's a Sidekick is it's the Hex N More's sidekick.
Nice.
Get it?
Nice.
So for those of you who are not familiar with Hex N More, I'll give you a quick Hex N More overview, and then we'll really talk about the Sidekick since that's the new one. So for those of you who are familiar with the Hex N More, comes shrink wrapped, full color directions. These are the life-size pieces, cut 16 pieces, 4 shapes, 4 sizes, and these are the actual size. And later, feel free to come up, look at them. I have more stuff. I'm used to doing this demo horizontally on a table. So forgive me, you guys get the first version up on a wall. So on the cover, where you see the shape is where you cut it on the ruler. And everything is rotary cut from strips. On the inside, it gives you a yield chart. So if you're not following one of my patterns, you just need to cut a lot of hexagons. For instance, this size, you're gonna get 7 out of a width of fabric. That one, you're gonna get 5, 4, so forth and so on. So I gave you all of that, color and piecing ideas. And when you get home and don't remember a darn word that I said, full color directions on how to cut each of the shapes.
Very nice.
Now the biggest difference with this ruler than other hexagon things that you might be familiar with is traditionally, especially with English paper piecing, they measure hexagons on the length of a side. 1 inch, 2 inch. And the same is true with the pre-cut hexagon packs from Moda and from Robert Kaufman. And they're 2 different sizes, but that's how the measurements work. Now, I like things to be easy, just like they do here, and rotary cut and strips and so forth. So, what I decided to do was make everything measure based off of the height. So we had 8, 6, 4, 2. Works with 4, 3, 2, 1. So in order to cut this hexagon, instead of figuring out that this is 5.3724, so that it works out with that measurement, 6.5 inch strip is going to give me 6 inch hexagons. 4.5 inch strip gives me 4 inch hexagons. So forth and so on. So it's really, really easy. I like things, the quilts to look complicated and complex, but the process to be easy. So
That's what we like too.
I'm very glad. So I have 10 different quilts or projects from the one ruler. That is Candy Dish, which they have samples here somewhere as well.
What she did, that's just talking about.
Super, super easy. It's just the hexagon and the triangle. And it's from a charm pack. And there's reverse ones where you can either do the hexagon in the print fabric and then all of your background is the same, or you do all of your triangles in one fabric and all of your hexagons are the same.
Julie, is that sewn together in rows?
Yes, there are no Y seams in anything of these patterns because why? And the second little project is Jawbreaker. So Jawbreaker is also a pillow pattern, and this is made. You would normally think that's one piece. That's 6 pieces of fabric. Come up and look. So that's how there's no Y seams. There's our construction.
So are those 2 strips sewn together and then you use your ruler
Yep.
to cut out triangles to sew them together?
Yes. So with this one, it's 2.5 inch strips sewn together. Cut the triangle, and go ahead and piece them together. Now, if you're working from scraps, you also could go ahead and cut half hexagon on the triangle. Do the same thing.
Do you put all the pieces together on the diagonal then? Is that how you?
That one's also rows.
I'm sorry?
That one's also rows.
Across.
Yep.
Okay.
Hold it up
Triangles
again
and rows.
so we can see. Will you show us the rows? Because it's so quilted we can't see it.
Oh, okay.
Good question.
And then this is the Tasty Table Runner. So if you have ever made a traditional braid pattern before, you know that you end up piecing everything together and then chomping off all of the waste. If I can find the right pieces, I will show you how this works.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool.
Very cool.
So they are biased, but your edges are straight after you've pieced your braid together.
You don't have to laugh.
Can you turn cell phones on?
That's the house phone.
Forgot to get that movie disclaimer. So this is made with 9 2.5 inch strips. So how many times do you work on a project with a jelly roll and you have leftovers? This is a perfect project. You have 9 strips that match from 1 collection, 2 collections, whatever, put together super easy and fast table runner. Thank you, Donna. The first quilt pattern that I designed with the ruler is called Northern Lights. And this is one of those, looks complicated, someone's gonna think you worked very hard, and it's really super simple when you start to read the pattern and dissect it. Again, it's also just rows, and it's actually only made from one shape. By sticking with solids or small to small medium scale, you hide the horizontal line. And if you do quilting similar to what Angela Walters, that's all my quilting, what she did here, where she quilted a different motif in each column, it really strengthens the vertical column look. You don't see the construction at all.
That's beautiful.
Then the next one came out with the ruler is called Wonton. And so one thing, if you're not familiar with my patterns, is they have size options. So for example, Northern Lights, that was the lap size, Wonton is the baby size. So all of the patterns have at least 3 size options, some have up to 5. 5. This is the baby sample, but the pattern has larger ones. And so this one is the jewel, half hexagon, and 2 triangles to make an elongated diamond. So all of those together in rows, so the rows together.
Nice.
So again, no Y seams, no funny construction. Everything's just rotary cut, chain sew, put it together. Yeah.
And your minor was math?
No, it should have been. I always liked math. I actually went to school to be a graphic designer, and then I got a master's in education. I was going to be an art teacher, and then I went and worked retail management. So this is Lotus, and I know you're not supposed to pick favorites, but this is definitely one of my favorites. And apparently it's also my mother's favorite because she asked for a king-size version of this for her bed. So that's in progress. So this is the jewel and triangles. And you sew those triangles here, that to there, put them together so there's still no Y seams in making each of the blocks. Make all the blocks. Lay out all the ones with the light colored triangles pointing up, dark colored triangles pointing down, gives that little bit of play. So your rows together, so each of the rows together when they're done. Super easy, fun construction. You'll notice a lot of my things are borderless. I've also written a book called Skip the Borders. I just don't think, thank you, there's my book. I am a strong believer in if a quilt needs a border to feel finished, go ahead and put a border on it, but don't put a border on it just because someone told you you had to. Let your quilt talk to you. If it doesn't feel like it needs it to feel finished, if you want to put a border on this, I've seen people do it and post pictures. I don't live in your house, that's fine, it's your quilt. I won't go after you. You can. And then I will use this one as an example. The directions are in my book as well as on my blog for how to do a pieced back. If you've never thought about doing a pieced back, there's a lot of different reasons. First off, I know that I am not a scrap quilter. Respect scrap quilts, and I think they're awesome. I just know that it's not my forte, it's not my strength. So these are my leftover pieces in this label stripe. Otherwise, they'd be sitting in a bin taking up space. Now they're on the back of the quilt, and I have space to buy more fabric.
Oh, love it.
So this one is called Science Fair, and this was conceived by one of my boyfriend's engineering textbooks was open, and I saw some formula of something that made me think of it, so I named it after him as well. And this one's fun because it goes together pretty fast because only half your blocks are pieced, half are purring. And it's a fun play of positive and negative space. It's a little bit different. Similar construction to the pillow with sewing 2 strips and cutting triangles. And then half hexagons, and the whole thing is constructed in columns. And then I decided not to cut the top and the bottom straight. I just didn't want to lose those hexagons, especially at the bottom. In the pattern, as well as on my blog, are detailed directions on how to do the concave and convex 120-degree angles. It's not that much harder than binding regular angles, but I gave you that information. The one thing I would suggest is definitely use bias. It works around the angles a little bit better. This is called Toes in the Sand, and this is a Block of the Month book, which is right over here. It's a full color book, 12 different blocks. So it's really 13 projects in one, because say you fall in love with this block, you can make a whole quilt out of this block. And what it is, if you look carefully, this block, same block. So it's every block twice, different fabric, looks like 24 blocks. And this uses all of the shapes in the ruler. It's a really, really great way to start with the Hex N More, learn lots of different things. So this one is called Snack Time. So again, this is the baby sample. The cover shows the lap size. And this one, you're going to work with the hexagon, the triangle, and then these are made from half hexagons. And there is one partial seam to start it, but no Y seams. Build your half hexagons around, and then still assemble the whole thing in columns. And someone asked me if there's a piece binding. If you come up and look carefully later. So this was a jelly roll, and I didn't have any of that collection for the binding. I was trying to decide what to do. If you look carefully, the binding is made up of 5 jelly roll strips. I pieced them together, and then I cut them on the bias and made my binding out of that. So, and they're all the same print, just different colors. So it's kind of like think of it as like a bubblegum stripe, that like striped gum. It's sort of kind of looks, so you got like purple and the green and pink. This is called Tiny Dancer. And again, I kept the top and the bottom without trimming them straight, just like we did with Science Fair. Didn't want to hack the points off. You could add in filler triangles if you weren't comfortable binding this, or you could cut them off. This is made with fat quarters. You get 2 blocks out of every fat quarter, and it's just a half hexagon, the triangle, and we piece in columns. So lots of different possibilities that all look very different from one thing.
It looks very hard.
Yeah,
It's very easy.
No.
Wow.
Not at all.
It's very easy.
I've made this one 4 times already.
Yeah, you've made it. She's got one.
So, and we can show them back real quick. So this is a perfect example of, I really wanted to use this glue in the back and I didn't have enough.
Oh.
I don't stress about most of the back being one fabric either. They're my quilts. They make me happy, so I use as much as I could. And then that's not actually even the same gray if you look carefully. It's very close, but I didn't even have enough of the same gray on the front. You don't know unless you really analyze it. Made a column, used some of the scraps from the front, put my label in, and there I go.
Love it.
So I like doing this because it gets fabric used and not stuck in a bin and on my quilt, and then I have room to find more pretty fabric. Because really, isn't that why we do this?
Yes.
To buy fabric. Let's just all be honest. We're quilters because we like to buy fabric.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Sidekick was designed as a sidekick to the Hex N More. So the Hex N More by itself, still an amazing, awesome, fabulous ruler. Can cut those 4 shapes and 4 sizes. I got a request from people for what's next, and I also wanted to see what I could do next. And I had originally always wanted to incorporate more shapes into the Hex N More, but I didn't want there to be so many lines in the ruler that it got distracting. I personally don't like when specialty tools have so many functions that you can't figure out the one that you're trying to figure out. So then came the Sidekick. It's nice and little, easy, size of a pattern bag. Very similar to the Hex N More in the fact that it has full color directions. Shows you on the front what the pieces are going to get cut. Shows you how they work together, shows you the yield. And how to cut all of the shapes. And I color code everything in here because I like color coding. And I
do too.
think many others do as well. So the Sidekick can cut the triangle, but it also adds to the family the diamond, and the half triangle. One thing with the Sidekick is, as opposed to different sizes, well, we have 4 sizes of each of the shapes. They're all the same size. So it's 4, 3, 2, 1. So all our strips are going to be 4.5, 3.5, 2.5, 1/2. So out of a 3.5 inch strip, I can cut all of my shapes from the same strip.
Wow. Cool. Nice.
So very little waste. There's actually no waste cut to cut at all. So depending on what pattern you're working with and what shapes you need, sometimes you're cutting them out of different strips, sometimes you could be cutting them out of the same strip. And when you want the left and right, as opposed to cutting one layer at a time, right side up, we're going to cut fabric 2 layers, either right sides together or wrong sides together at the same time, and each cut is going to give us a mirror image. So every pattern specifically says whether or not you want to be cutting 2 layers, wrong sides together, or 1 layer. Something to pay attention to, but because sometimes you just want one, sometimes you want the other one. So I have 3 patterns right now for the Sidekick. So this is the Seaside Table Runner. Seaside Table Runner is made from 1 shape, it's just from the diamond. Assemble in rows, super easy. And it's also another great leftover project. It's 5 2.5 inch strips, 5 jelly roll strips, plus background and binding.
Love this quilting. Who did the quilting?
Angela Walters does almost all of my quilting. Angela's pretty awesome. And then if you flip them over, another example is I don't need to piece these backings, but I still do. And it's small enough that I could have just used, so sometimes I will fuse the label on if I really don't want to piece it, but I still piece these and I piece my label in, just so it's quilted in. I like having the label quilted in. These are rock candy.
Can't wait to make that one.
So rock candy's a table topper,
Cool.
diamonds and triangles. Again, no Y seams. This is the directions. You could do it from scraps, so the directions are from a charm pack. So get 2 diamonds out of every charm. So it's 18 charms plus background and binding.
Wow.
And like I said, I still piece the backs.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You wanna pass around?
So this one, for instance, I
Yes.
used up a bunch of scraps.
Is that done in rows or column?
This is done in wedges
Wedges.
Pass.
of the 6.
Got one on my board right now.
So are these the patterns that are gonna be coming out?
No, these are the ones that are here.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have lots and lots of the
Yeah,
patterns
like
and the
the other
rulers?
We do have lots up here.
Okay.
And so then the third one
Giggles.
is Giggles. And so Giggles is a baby quilt. And this is made with the diamonds and the half triangles. So it's our half triangles up here, 2 in each. That's square, squared off. It's our diamonds. Put it together in columns, still no Y seams. And this one is made from 10-inch squares. And so these little ones are only $6.50. Little patterns. They usually include like one smaller project, pillow, table runner, or a baby quilt. Really great, easy, fun project to get you started on. And for anybody who does do social media, the ruler itself has its own hashtag, Sidekick Ruler, and each of the patterns have their own hashtags on the back. And what that does is if you're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, Pinterest, that becomes a searching tool. So I can look up the Sidekick Ruler hashtag and I can see regularly on Instagram who's making my stuff and what are they making and see pictures and I can leave comments and it's a lot of fun for me because one of the things that, of course, I wish I had more hours in the day, like I'm sure all of you do, so I could make infinity number of quilts, but I don't. And so I really love to see pictures of what you make because you're going to do it in totally different fabric. And some person already has taken 6 rock candy blocks and turned it into an entire quilt. So I love seeing those things. So that's also on here as well. Does anybody have questions with the Sidekick?
It's nice. It's easy peasy.
So everything is it's kind of harder to show you on the wall, but everything is just align it, cut. Sometimes with the triangle, for instance, you're going to go up and down with the ruler. And with this, it's right there. And then
Any more questions for Julie?
No, but she's fabulous.
Brilliant.
Fabulous.
Good grief. That's your dress rubbing on the mic.
luckily we're not posting this part.
Or are we?
I know where you live.
Editing.
Lots of editing.
What did he say?
Kim has never spoken before.
What did you say?
Never spoken.
Lots of editing.